La Niña, the phenomenon that brings wetter weather over Southeast Asia, is now more likely to emerge at the end of the year than before. Now, this is according to the latest update from the World Meteorological Organization. Its latest forecast has raised the likelihood of a transition from neutral to La Niña conditions to 60% from October until February next year. This is up from its February forecast of a 55% likelihood. So what is La Niña exactly? It refers to the cooling of surface temperatures in the Pacific Ocean as winds blow from South America to Australia and Southeast Asia. Now, this usually means cooler temperatures and favorable conditions for agriculture for this region. But some climate authorities are cautious, as La Niña may also result in heavy rain, thunderstorms, and even flood risks. With the increased likelihood of the phenomenon, Southeast Asia may have to prepare for severe weather conditions ahead. Now, climate scientists say the La Niña weather phenomenon could not just bring about extreme rainfall, it could also user conditions ripe for the spread of diseases to Singapore and the region. But there is hope that a weak La Niña by the end of the year could ease these negative impacts. Now, to tell us more, I have with me Dr. Dhrubajyoti Samanta, Senior Research Fellow at the Earth Observatory of Singapore at the Nanyang Technological University. Dr. Dhruba, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, share with us what happens when a La Niña event hits Singapore. What does that mean for our weather?
Yeah, La Niña is a climate phenomenon and is a part of a cycle called El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO. As you explained, the La Niña is a cold phase of ENSO, and during that period, we get cooler ocean temperature in the central and the eastern equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean, and that causes changes in the weather pattern across the globe. And in Singapore, we get also changes in weather pattern. We particularly see three main changes.
Okay.
First, we see more rainfall, so that means La Niña brings more frequent and heavier rainfall, and that can increase the chances of floods and also waterborne diseases. And second, it changes the temperature. It cools down a little bit, and that's good for us. And the third thing, it provides better air quality. So when there is more rainfall, then it reduces the haze condition that we generally experiences in this region. So specifically, these three is very important for Singapore.
I want to quote you on an interview that you did, what you said in an interview sometime in June, that the available predictions then indicate the emergence of a weak La Niña. So if it's not very strong, its impact will not be very strong. What are some local and regional factors that may influence the probability and the scale of La Niña in Singapore?
Yeah, that's correct. So La Niña is impacted by several conditions regionally and locally. For example, regionally, Indian Ocean dipole, that's a similar seesaw type pattern in Indian Ocean that can impact the La Niña. Also, we have the monsoon system, both the southwest and the northeast monsoon, that can impact the La Niña. And also on local scale, the urban heating or the land use changes also can changes the La Niña pattern.
And depending on the scale and intensity of La Niña, how severe would its impacts be, say, on the different aspects of our lives, on the spread of diseases, for example, and on the disruptions to supply chains, especially when Singapore, a country like Singapore, looks to regional countries for food security?
Yeah, absolutely. So when there is stronger La Niña, then obviously it will increase the likelihood of floods, and that can disrupt the supply chain. And then also it can impact the flooding and more rainfall related disasters. But if we get weaker La Niña by the end of this year, then the impact may not be so severe. But we still need to wait and see how it develops in the ocean.
As we, study the weather patterns, Singapore recorded above average rainfalls in the first 2 weeks of September. And of course, that Sumatran squall that everyone's talking about earlier this week. Are these more signs that La Niña is indeed coming, or are they more of a product of climate change?
Yeah, I agree that we observed already some unusual events earlier this month. But if we see the La Niña condition, it's still developing, so it's still not totally mature condition. So we may not able to blame La Niña for this, but of course there are some climate change impact and also some local weather phenomena that cause this unusual event that we scientists need to study more to better understand what causes those events.
And how equipped are we with early warning systems, Dr. Dhruba, to mitigate extreme impacts of the changing weather patterns?
So we are very lucky to live in Singapore. Singapore has a very good warning system. For example, NEA provides good meteorological warning system in terms of all the weather condition. And we have the PUB, they also provide the flood warning system. And also additionally, we have regionally, there are several warning systems. So we are equipped of the warning system, but as we are experiencing more effect of global warming and climate change, then this impact of extreme events may further increase in coming decades. So at the end, we need to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions so that we can reduce the impact of these extreme events in the coming decades.
Yeah, that's good advice. And what about us? How do we prepare for such weather events like the Sumatran squall that we saw? How do we stay safe on the ground?
I would say we should be following the weather forecast in that local government agency is providing. And also, if there is a likelihood of that type of event, we should stay indoor and should be careful while driving and drive slowly so that we can keep safe ourselves.
Dr. Dhruba, we appreciate you coming into the studio to talk to us about this. Thank you very much for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Dhrubajyoti Samanta, Senior Research Fellow at the Earth Observatory of Singapore at NTU.